Hey, my name is Rowan Smith and I want to welcome you to the Training for Trekking podcast. Now, this is the world's very first podcast which is entirely dedicated to helping you train, prepare and conquer your upcoming hike, trek or mountain adventure. So once a week, I'm going to be giving you quality and practical information on the subjects of physical preparation for trekking, dealing with altitude and nutrition on the trail, so you can know everything you need to be doing to have the best chance of a safe, enjoyable and successful adventure. So now you know what you're in for. Let's get into today's episode. All right, welcome guys. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about mental strength for hiking and trekking. Now, this is a really interesting subject because in the hiking world, many people are pretty sure that mental strength is a big portion of getting through their adventures. And as much as we train physically, we try to get ourselves in a perfect position that our bodies can handle these things, sometimes the limiting factor is purely what's going through our heads. And having a few simple mental strength strategies can really make a massive difference in your adventures, whether you're just walking in a local national park and have to tackle a big hill coming up, or whether you're doing a multi-day trek or even a multi-month through hike. And the reason why I want to talk about this today is because even though everyone knows it's very important and it's very beneficial to use, quite often the information regarding this subject is pretty subpar. In the sense that most times when you go onto the internet, you might Google in mental strength for hiking, or you might ask on an internet forum, you'll get lots of answers and lots of responses about these type of things. But usually, like a lot of things in the hiking world, it's just really generic answers. So it's things like, hey, just have positive thoughts, or hey, just tell yourself you can do this, or hey, sing a song in your head and stuff like that. And these things can be beneficial, but as with anything in the entire training world, I'm all about trying to be specific and use things that are particular strategies. So it's not just a general statement, but a very specific thing someone can apply to, and that way you can 100% know whether it's working or not. So today I'm going to be running you through a list of things which I've found in the past to be really beneficial for hiking and trekking, but also in endurance performance in general. So to start with, I'm going to talk about the initial technique. Now, full disclosure, this one is not mine. I borrowed this from a guy called Zach Davis, who, if you don't know who he is, he runs the Trek.co website, and he released a book a while ago called Appalachian Trials, which is a book purely around mental strength and emotional strength for through hiking in the US. Now, I got recommended this book a few podcast episodes ago when I had Lee from Trailside Fitness on here. So I went out and bought it, and it's absolutely fantastic. Now, I haven't gotten through the whole thing yet, but one of the fantastic techniques they have at the start is understanding your why. Now, knowing the why behind how you're doing something or why you're doing something is so incredibly important in every aspect of your life. And so many people in the business world, in the high performing world, in the athletics world, they will use this technique when you can dig into not just, hey, I want to do this particular thing, but why is the reason that I want to do it? And once you have a sort of general answer to that, it's like, why is that reason why I want to do it? And usually it comes down to anything we're trying to achieve. There is a deeper psychological reason why we're trying to achieve something. And if we can tap into that and we can recognize that and we can identify that, it can make everything so much more powerful in every way, shape and form. So your motivation for the trail, your focus for the trail, your motivation to train, your just when things get tough, what you can cling to. And so you can really know what you are trying to accomplish and why you're trying to accomplish it. Now, I love the way, as much as this is a really general technique, I love the way that Zach broke it down in his book. And it's basically, he recommends sitting down in a quiet place, getting out a pen and paper and just answering this question. I am completing whatever your adventure is because, and you want to list out 4 or 5 different reasons why you're doing this. So things like, I need to rediscover the adventure in my life. For example, you've just gone living in Groundhog Day and you've just got no excitement going on, and you booked yourself in a trek to Mount Kilimanjaro and you just want to get out and be adventurous again and feel that spark and that spirit again. And that could be a very specific reason for that. Or this trek has been on my bucket list since I was a teenager. And that's, for many people, that's a very, very common inspiration for things. And it's just something they see the years ticking over, and this thing on the bucket list just doesn't go off. And eventually they just take the plunge, like, look, this is why I want to do it. And purely identifying the fact that, hey, I've wanted to do this for the last 20, 30 years, that can be really, really powerful psychologically. Or my body is slowing down and I need to make the most of it while I can, which again, a lot of people can probably associate with that. Or I want to prove to myself that I'm still capable of doing something significant. So again, that ties into the fact if you're not doing something crazy or challenging or adventurous in your life, and maybe you just want to prove that your body, you still got it in you. If you put your head down and you really focus on something, you can get through it. Everyone is going to have their own different reasons here, and it's very, very personal for every person's unique situation. But identifying this is really, really, really incredibly powerful. And then if you want, you can take it another step further. So you might answer this first question, I'm completing whatever because I need to rediscover the adventure in my life. And then you'll ask yourself, why again? Why do I need to rediscover the adventure in my life? And then you might say, hey, I want to rediscover it because I just don't feel like I'm accomplishing anything anymore and life's a little bit flat. And then you can ask yourself, why again? And you can keep on digging down the rabbit hole. And sometimes it does get a bit uncomfortable and you do get a little, realize things which you don't really want to know, but it's so, so powerful if you can dig that up. And you can use that in any aspect of your life. So that's number one, discovering your why, and it's incredibly, incredibly powerful. Now, technique number two is something I'm a really massive advocate for, is affirmations for the trail. Now, affirmations sometimes do sound a little bit airy-fairy, and they do have a lot of meanings to a lot of people. But basically, in its essence, is affirmations are positive, specific statements that can help overcome negative thoughts. Now, negative self-talk, and when we're in a certain situation and we're just talking to ourselves saying, this sucks, or walking up a hill and it's like, I just want this to be over, or I can't do this, or anything negative, when you get in your head, it really, really is an incredibly powerful thing, and your mind is really, really crazy. And anytime you do think these things, your body will believe it, and what's going through your head will actually turn up physically, and so your strength might be reduced, or your aerobic capacity might be reduced. And this is an airy-fairy stuff. This is all pretty rock solid in evidence, and just showing that negative self-talk is a really, really dangerous thing. Now, the simplest way to overcome this is to give yourself a specific affirmation, a positive affirmation, which you can repeat in your head over and over and over, which can tear you out of that negative cycle and that negative spiral, and make sure your body's thinking, hey, I can do this, I'm feeling good. And then when you're given the positive self-talk, it can go in the other direction. So it increase your strength, increase your aerobic capacity, and decrease your perception of perceived effort. And it really is amazing. So a few great examples here is talking in your head, my legs are strong, I'm full of energy, and this is easy. And literally repeating that in your head again and again and again might sound crazy, but does a huge amount. Or I've trained for this, I've prepared for this, nothing can stop me. Or another one, I chose this, I love this, and I will conquer this. It can, again, literally be anything. It just wants to be simple, it wants to be memorable, and it wants to be meaningful for you. And just repeat it in your head again and again. Get in the habit of doing it day-to-day life. And when you're on the trail, you can really, really fall back on it and lean to it when things get tough. As with anything, and any of these techniques, practice does make perfect. So you do need to practice this before you go, and the more you can practice it and the more you can get the habit of it, the more powerful it will be. So affirmations, I'm a big, big fan of these. Next is visualization. So visualization is a really interesting technique that professional athletes have used for decades, and it's basically all about the process of creating a vivid mental image of what's going to happen in reality. So if you've ever seen a professional rugby player, lining up a kick, and they do their funny little, step back and they wait a few seconds and then they kick, every single professional kicker or every single professional athlete in the world, what they're doing in that situation is they're visualizing exactly what's going to happen. So their next few steps to kick the ball, how it's going to feel on their feet, exactly where they want the ball to go. And they run through that in their head before they kick the ball. And that's exactly what you can do when you're on the trail. Now, when you're going to be using here is a particular part of hiking that you do struggle with. And most people will be aware of what that is, whether it's hill climbing or stair climbing or crossing a river or going on a descent, or just something that you really, really do know you struggle with. Now, what you're going to do at home or at the start of the day is you're just going to start, we're going to use a hill climbing, for example. You're just going to start imagining you're climbing a big hill that you are familiar with. So you want to start thinking about what it looks like around you. So imagine the surroundings, imagine the trees, imagine the dirt, and every little detail you can pick out. Then you're going to start imagining the wind on your face, the smell in the air, the sound surrounding you. And as immersive as you can get in this situation, really, really feel it out. Because the more specific you can get here, the more effective this technique is. And then you're going to start to imagine how your body actually feels in this situation. Now, if you're thinking back in memory and you're thinking about this terrible long hill that you tried to attack, you might be remember that your legs were shaking, your lungs were burning, and you're just really, really struggling and not having a great time. But what we want to do here is we want to change that perception and change that thing in your head, which tells you struggle on the hills, into instead saying that you're having a great time on the hills. So instead, imagine that your legs are strong, and not just think it in your head, but really, really imagine. Take those times when you just feel so strong and powerful in your legs and implant it into this memory. Then imagine you can breathe easy. So again, the same thing, when you can breathe in these massive deep breaths and you're feeling great, implant into this memory when you're walking up a hill, and that you're absolutely just charging up the hill and you feel unstoppable. Now really get immersive into this. So you can imagine every step you take all the way up the top of the hill. So if it's a 3-minute hill, you would literally imagine 3 minutes every single step going up, feeling strong, feeling happy, feeling like you can breathe easily. And then imagine when you actually get to the top and that really massive sense of achievement. Now, by going through this process and imprinting these feelings in your mind, you can train your brain to believe that is what it's going to actually feel like when you're on the trail. So when you're next at the bottom of a climb, and when you're out on the trail and you do start feeling those negative emotions and you do start already stressing out that's going to be tough, go through this technique. Imagine everything, even down to the most minute detail as possible, and then go for it. It might sound a little bit airy-fairy to some, and it might sound a little bit complicated for some, but it absolutely 100% makes a world of difference. Now, this one, again, it does take a lot of practice to do, and the more you can do it and the more that you can practice it, the more effective it's going to be. Particularly when you're tired and you might be hungry, you might be having a tough day. You don't want things to be hard on the trail, and particularly with these mental techniques, you don't want to be stressing about things and trying to remember how to do things. So the more you practice it at home, the simpler and the easier it's going to be when you're actually on the trail. So you can fall back on it if you're struggling. Now, the more specific, as I said before, on this one you can get, the better. So really, really immerse yourself in that memory, into that visualization, and it really will make a big difference. Now, next one, number 3, is we're going to be talking about, or number 4, sorry, we're going to be talking about goal setting for trekking. So in a broad sense, goal setting is absolutely amazing for trekking and general life to keep your motivation and focus and accountability over the long term. So if you're training for, say, Everest Base Camp in 12 weeks time, you might set a 4-week goal and an 8-week goal, and you might set daily goals and things you want to achieve. But when you're on the trail, you can do the same sort of thing, but you can break it up into tiny small goals, which are going to happen every half an hour, every 20 minutes, or whatever it may be. So basically what it involves is you're going to break up the hikes into small actionable pieces instead of just thinking, I need to attack this whole trail and complete this whole trail. So what this does, it allows you to concentrate on one small and very accomplishable piece of the trail at a time, and stops you really dwelling on those seemingly unsurmountable challenge looming in the distance. So for example, if you've got 10 hours of rock hopping ahead of you, like Trevor was talking about the other week on the podcast, you could literally choose a big rock in the distance and say, that's what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to just get to this rock, which is going to take me 20 minutes or so. That's all I care about. I'm just going to nail that. And then once you get to that rock, then you can set your next goal and just put all your focus into that. Now, the idea behind this is it sets up something called a success loop in your brain. So every time you tick off one of these smaller goals, you feel really, really good. And you feel like good about yourself, you could feel good physically, and you get that real mental boost that you need just to keep you going and ticking over. So basically, as I said, easiest way to do it is find yourself a landmark which you're going to reach. So whether it's a rock in the distance, a peak in the distance, a river or something like that, you're going to set yourself a little reward for when you actually get there. Now the rewards are important, because if you get there and just keep on walking, it's it doesn't really signal to the brain or to the body anything's happened. But instead, if you get there and you give yourself a little 2-minute breather, or you save yourself a specific snack after you tackled a certain goal, or you literally sit there and have a chat with someone or whatever. It doesn't have to be big, but just something very, very specific, which you're going to reward yourself with. Now, once you've done that, then you're going to put all your attention in reaching the next goal. You're going to get to that goal, and then you're going to repeat the process. So choose a landmark, set a reward, get to the landmark, choose a new one, set another reward, and then just keep that cycle going on. And this is really, really effective, if you're on a big hill and you can just do little rewards every 5 minutes or so, or long term. So if you do have a 10-day trek, you can break it up a little bit bigger. And it really is very, very effective. Now, finally, one thing that isn't so much of a mental strength strategy, but it is incredibly important for your mental strength on the trail, and that is physical fitness. Now, obviously, this whole podcast, a lot of it's about physical preparation, physical training, because I'm a huge, huge advocate of it. And we haven't really talked about how this affects your mental strength while you're on the trail. But knowing that you're just physically capable of tackling anything on the trail is probably one of the single most effective ways of improving your mental strength. So, for example, like if you are coming up on a hike and you've got lots of elevation, and if you train and make sure that you might be doing weighted up hills, or you might be doing lots of work on the Stairmaster, or you might be doing this really, really tough training, and so you know that you can not only physically tackle these in the gym environment, but when you get to it on the trail, you'll be like, hey, this is easy, no worries, I've done this a million times, I should be absolutely smash it, and it should be happy days. And that is so strong for your mental, so important for your mental strength. Now, another example is like if you hate like soft sand walking and you've got lots of that coming up on the trail, literally getting on the beach, spending a couple of hours dedicated entirely to this really does do wonders for your mental outlook, as opposed to just dreading it and thinking about it and just avoiding it until you're training and then have to deal with it when you're on there without any practice. That's a roadblock, and that's an issue which is going to plunge you into a bad mental state and a bad physical state, and you don't really want to do that. And then even like if you're worried about a heavy pack, training with not only with a heavy pack, but slowly and gradually building yourself up to a heavier pack than you'll have on the trail, which is an amazing training technique, is so, so good for your mental outlook. But whatever you are doing, working hard in your training, identifying any weaknesses or blind spots you might have and turning them into strengths, you will know 100% you can accomplish whatever you need to do on the trail, and your mental outlook and your mental health on the trail is going to be so, so amazing. So there's a bit of information there today and some very, very specific techniques. And I really personally find these things that I've listed off here are so, so powerful. Some might be really simple. Some might be a little bit complicated and need a little bit of work. But if you choose one or two or even all of these and apply these to your training, apply these to your hiking, and apply these to your trekking, it can go an absolutely amazing way of not only getting you through a trek if the times do get tough, but keeping you in a happy state where you can fully immerse yourself and enjoy yourself in this amazing experience that you've prepared for so long. So we're going to leave it there, guys. I really do hope you got some information out of that. Please do send me an email as always if there are any questions on this. As always, I really would appreciate it if you do enjoy this to please leave me a review on iTunes. It goes a huge way to helping me grow this podcast, to reach more hikers and trekkers, and really, really bring this information out into the adventure community. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you very, very soon.